Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. Here I am in a Saturday edition. This is a very, very strange feeling. The vibe in my home is definitely different on Saturday than it is any other, during the week, and it's really an interesting thing. And I just thought I'd spend a moment talking about this because it really does kind of, this is what mindfulness is all about, right? So, I woke up this morning and just even biologically, I did not feel like I was ready to work, but now this is a work day for me. So I'm transforming myself into this kind of transforming my schedule, but yet I could still feel some sort of, again, a biological resistance, right? Like kind of part of my circadian rhythm, right? That like this is a day where my body's used to, just putting on sweatpants and doing some laundry and getting a slow start to the day. And yet here I am. I've already had 2 meetings this morning, and it's quite a different feeling, right? And so there's one part of me that feels as though, well, maybe I want to be resistant to this, right? Like I want to say no, something doesn't feel right. I can't do this. I don't want to do the Saturday work anymore, right? But there's another part of me that is allowing this resistance to be there and saying it's okay to feel resistance, right? It's okay that it doesn't feel natural. It's okay that it feels weird, right? But we're going to go through it anyway, right? We're going to see what happens, right? Like I talked about with curiosity, right? It's not about saying, oh, this is going to be a terrible podcast today. It's going to be a terrible meeting. It's going to be, I'm just not on my game today, right? Which honestly is how it feels, right? It feels as though I'm not really on my game, right? Like normally Monday through Friday, I have a different sort of method. And by the time I'm doing this podcast recording, I'm usually pretty amped up and like got some caffeine in me and definitely like kind of, in the flow of the day in a certain way that's kind of, a different energy that I'm riding, right? And so, but now it's different. It doesn't make it worse or better. It's just different. And even though it feels maybe uncomfortable and it feels awkward, right? Like that's the curiosity, is to say, okay, well, what's going to be like when I do a podcast feeling awkward and uncomfortable? Wonder what that's going to be like. Right. Whereas instead, again, before I might have said, oh, no, I can't do the podcast before. I'm just going to have to cancel. I'm just going to call it all off because I just can't do it from this state of mind. Right. So I just thought I'd spend that moment and tell you about that's what's going on with me and how it's, again, it's like it's no different for any of us, right? Like anytime we're doing something a little different or we're trying to change something or we're trying to adjust things in our lives, this is what's going to happen. And again, it's the acceptance that this is what's going to happen and really the presence and the awareness of it happening, right? It's the awareness of the awkward feeling. It's the awareness of the difficulty that I'm experiencing, right? The awareness of that is what cultivates my ability to accept it, right? Because if I'm aware in a curious way, well, then I can accept what's happening and I can keep stepping forward into it, right? But if I'm aware in a fearful way, well, then I'm not going to step forward. I'm not going to step into it. I'm not going to turn towards it. I'm going to be, reluctant. I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to, hold myself back from things. I'm going to cancel the podcast, right? And go back to Monday through Friday. Never mind. Let's just start over again. I can't do it. Right. And so this, this is how we learn about ourselves, right? This is how we grow, right? And this is going to tie very deeply into the topic of today. I just kind of made this own segue on my own here, but but that's, this ability to be with it is how I'm going to grow and how I'm going to expand. If we only just say, no, that's the edge of my comfort zone, not going any further, well, then we'll never learn what we can do, right? We'll never learn what we're really capable of doing, right? And so that comfort zone kind of thing, it's about pushing that edge. It's about going to that edge and seeing what that edge feels like, right? Not saying, oh, screw the edge, I'm just going to barrel through and, just jump off the cliff. No, that's not good either, right? That's or that can become problematic also. Let me say that, right? So really the way I like to look at it is kind of looking, kind of pushing up to that edge and then kind of looking over it and saying, okay, what's this feel like right now? What does it feel like to be looking over this edge? And what does it feel like to feel this resistance that the edge provides me? And what happens, again, curiously, what happens if I step forward into it? If I break that edge just a little bit, right? Not unconsciously barreling through and saying, screw it, I'm not going to worry about it, I'm just going to go, right? I mean, that you might accomplish things, right? You might get through something that way, right? But you're not going to learn about yourself during the process. You're not going to grow through that experience. And so for me, if I have a choice of either, just getting through something or growing through something, I'm going to choose growth every single time. It's a fascinating thing to learn about ourselves, right? And so how does this tie back in, right? So today was the topic of today. I gave you a little teaser yesterday, right? Is a peaceful mind is a powerful mind. I drink these teas, right? I gave up coffee about going on 3 or 4 years ago now, which is crazy for me because I'm sorry, I don't like to use that word crazy, but it's very like shocking that I sit here say that I haven't had a cup of coffee in over 3 years now, because growing up I would have, like, literally I was in freshman year of high school, so 13 years old, and every morning I would stop by a little cafe before I got on the train and get a coffee and a bagel, like at 13 years old, right? And so I was drinking basically, kind of very elevated amounts of coffee in the end, but every single day from the time I was 13 to the time I was 49, right? So, I mean, you do the math, it's a lot of coffee, right? And so I haven't drunk coffee in like over 3 years again. So now I drink tea, and I love tea, right? There's a real big difference between the amount of caffeine in a tea versus a cup of coffee. Now, specifically, I drink green tea, right? So green tea, you get it in several different sort of intensities, right? So a cup of coffee, I don't know why I'm giving you all this information, but maybe you're interested. So a cup of coffee has, generally speaking, like on average, about a 95 milligrams of caffeine per 8-ounce glass, right? A cup of green tea, can range from, I have some green teas that are like 9 milligrams of caffeine. I have some others that are 15 milligrams of caffeine. And I have my maximum one is like 79 milligrams of caffeine, I think. So any of these are less than 1 cup of coffee. And in fact, most of them, I can drink like 2 or 3 cups for every 1 cup of coffee, which is really, really nice. But what's also amazing, right? And this kind of ties in, and I'm glad I brought this up because it kind of ties into what I just said a moment ago, right? Is that, when I first started this, right, I was already practicing mindfulness when I gave up coffee. And I don't think I would have otherwise, right? But it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to give up coffee. I'm just going to go cold turkey, and I'm just going to suffer through it, right? It's another thing to allow myself to be present with what it feels like to give up coffee, right? And how difficult it is in those first couple of weeks, but then also to see how my body has adjusted and how now, 18 milligrams of caffeine can set me off just like 2 or 3 cups of coffee used to. So it's amazing how my body has adjusted and has opened up to the way that it all works, right? And again, this kind of ties into what we're talking about today too, right? That when the so anyway, these teas that I drink, every tea, I don't have a bag in my cup right now, but every cup of tea has this little tag on it, and on these tags, so the tea is called Yogi tea. It's delicious tea, by the way. But each one of them has a little message on there, right? And they're just so sweet and beautiful messages. This particular one is, let your thoughts give hope, guidance, and upliftment to all. I didn't know upliftment was a word. may your thoughts give hope, guidance and upliftment to all. Isn't that a beautiful thing to think about when you're drinking a cup of tea? And that's the beautiful thing, right? Is that you get these little messages, and as you're drinking your tea, you can sit with that message. Right, it's a really beautiful practice, and so the other day, one of these tea bags said, a peaceful mind is a powerful mind," and that was like, boom, because that's the thing, right? A lot of times we think about, in most of the things we do, especially here in America, in the Western world, right? Most of the things we do, right? If we're going to change something about ourselves, or if we're going to improve something, or we're going to, cultivate something in our lives, right? We're going to do so in a kind of additive practice, right? So like when we want to get in shape, right? We go to a gym and we do this thing at the gym to create this thing for ourselves, right? If we want to lose weight, right? We go on a diet, right? We figure out this new thing that we bring into our lives, right? We now change the way we're eating based on this thing that we're bringing into our lives, right? Mindfulness and meditation are the opposite kind of action, right? In mindfulness and meditation, what we're doing is we're uncovering, we're letting go of the things that have created a problem for us. Now, everyone comes to this practice to solve some kind of problem, right? Unless you're born in a country and a culture that practices something like Buddhism as a matter of, again, part of the culture. Unless that's the case for you, then everyone who's come to this practice has come because they wanted some kind of benefit from the practice, right? For many people, that's stress reduction. For many people, that's clarity of mind. For many people, that's search for meaning in their life, a spiritual, kind of craving for meaning of some sort. For many people, it's anger reduction. For many people, it's just being able to be less aggressive and being kinder to people, right? And so whatever that thing is, right, that you've come to this work to do, right? In every single situation, right? It's not that you need to figure out how to become that thing. It's that you need to figure out how to uncover that thing that is already in you. Okay, and what I mean by that is that stress, for instance, right, is not a natural thing that you're going through. The stress is coming from some action of the mind, right? Because most stress, well, let me put it this, let me be very, very clear here. Psychological stress, right? So not stress, like if you're living in a dangerous neighborhood, you're going to go experience stress every day. And there's nothing that mindfulness can do to prevent that, right? But that's a legitimate and appropriate stress. Right? If you have to walk to school every day and there's gunshots around you, then the hypervigilance that the stress reaction in your body will provide is actually something that could save your life, right? So that's appropriate, right? So the stress that I'm talking about is when we're sitting at our desk thinking about our 30-year fixed mortgage, or our car payments, or our insurance, or to-do lists, or graduations, or communions, or birthday parties, or whatever, bar mitzvahs, whatever is going on for us, right? That when we get all wrapped up in those things, that's what's creating the stress for us, right? Similar to the clarity of mind, which is what this little tea bag told me, right? Is that the quiet mind, the peaceful mind, is the mind that is powerful, right? So it's not that you need to make your mind more powerful, because your mind, your brain is so powerful. I mean, it is amazingly powerful. And I don't care what your level of education, I don't care what your level of what you consider intelligence. It doesn't matter. All that stuff is pretty irrelevant, right? Or that's kind of maybe separating people at the very top end by little sort of fractions of degrees kind of thing, right? But every human brain, even brains that are developmentally challenged, right? With autism or Asperger's or ADD or any of these afflictions that have to do with kind of brain development, right? Not afflictions, they're just conditions that involve brain development, right? Even people who live with those conditions still those brains are so amazingly powerful. I mean, amazingly powerful. And of course, you can just look at the movie The Rain Man to see that, like some people, who live with a condition like Asperger's or autism are actually genius in some area that quote unquote normal people are not, right? And so your brain and your mind, your nervous system, your telomeres, everything in your body is amazing. And an amazing, powerful, like intelligent organism, right? I mean, it's massive, right? Before you're even born, your heart started beating, and it's never going to stop until you've lived however long you're going to live, potentially over 100 years, right? And it's going to keep beating the same exact rhythm, boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, for your entire 100-year life, potentially, right? I mean, that's amazing. Right. And we also know that the heart actually is made up of there's like 40% of the cells that make up the heart are neurons very similar to the ones that are in our brains. Same with our gut. It's surrounded by neurons. There's an intelligence that exists within our organism that really has nothing to do with even this brain or what we call our mind. Right. And so what mindfulness does, mindfulness allows you to sort of quiet the squelch, quiet the static, the static that comes from the overthinking and the ruminating and the worrying and the all that noise in the mind, right? When we quiet that and we clear out all of that, what we're left with is we're left with clarity, and we're left with amazing potential and amazing power of our minds. And this is the concept of emotional intelligence, really, right? That, Daniel Goleman wrote the book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ is the subtitle of that book, right? And he wrote that book like 20 years ago or something like that, 30 years ago. And what he's essentially saying, just even in the title and subtitle, right, is that, and I think there's a pre-title, I guess they call it, which is something that says like redefining what it means to be smart or something like that, or re-examining what it means to be smart or something like that. Because what does that mean, right? So all the time we consider the IQ, right? Like that's the benchmark of how smart we are, right? Like you take an IQ test, you get a number, and that number is how smart you are, right? So somebody like a genius has this number, somebody who's like on the low end of the chart has this number, and you're wherever you are, and you can compare yourself and say how smart you are and feel good or feel bad or whatever you want to do with that, right? But what the IQ test is really examining is just the ability that we have internally to just kind of, work out some problems, right? Just, internally, right? And I mean, I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter, right? And I guess and I'm not sure how much it matters, though, because the thing is that life is not like that. Right? Life is not sitting at a desk and just taking a test and giving answers in a vacuum of some sort, right? Because that's what the IQ test is. It's like in a vacuum, right? It exists in the vacuum of just your internal processing, right? Emotional intelligence and the way I understand what Daniel Goleman meant by saying why it can matter more than IQ is because social intelligence or emotional intelligence, right, which they're two different things but very closely related, but emotional intelligence, social intelligence are about how we interact with the world, right? Not just how we interact with that be more social intelligence, but emotional intelligence is also how we interact with our interaction with the world, right? So how we process the stimuli that we experience from the world, right? And what that means is, do we process the stimuli in a way that is going to cause noise and static in our mind and draw away our intelligence and our logic and our ability to solve problems and be creative and to connect with each other, right? So is my emotional reaction to what's happening around me going to take away my intelligence, or is my emotional response to what's happening around me going to increase my intelligence? right? And again, as you probably remember me saying, right, emotional intelligence is based on self-awareness, right? That's the first key domain that Daniel Goleman tells us about emotional intelligence, that it all springs from the ability to be aware of what's happening, right? And the only way we can be aware of what's happening is if we're not clouded with all these thoughts and all these worries and all these, jealousies and anger and all these, big things that are happening in our minds, right? If we're caught up in that, then we can't be aware of what's happening inside of us. And therefore, we are going to be what is known as emotionally illiterate, right? Which is the other side of emotional intelligence, right? And of course, emotional intelligence finishes with social skills, and that's where social intelligence takes over, right? And so it's again, what matters more? That you can figure out some theoretical problem in a 2-hour standardized test, or that you can enter into a life circumstance with awareness, with regulation, with motivation, with empathy, and with social skills, right? Because those are the 5 domains of emotional intelligence, right? But again, emotional intelligence is not about learning anything. It's not about filling your mind with anything. It's not about it's not about an additive process. It's about letting go. It's about opening up. It's about becoming more more grounded in what is happening inside and outside. That's what it's all about. And that's the way in which I kind of understood what my yogi tea bag was telling me the other day, is that the quiet mind, the peaceful mind, is the power. That's where we can harness our power of our minds, right? So in a very real way, we could say that awareness is power, right? Like that's kind of where we get to from this. That's where the logical sort of conclusion of this, right? But the really good news in all of this, however you want to define it, however you want to parse it, the really good news is that this emotional intelligence and the self-awareness that provides emotional intelligence, it's a skill. And like any other skill, it can be developed through a patient, self-compassionate practice. And I throw patience and self-compassion in there because I was just on a call a little while ago, a group meditation that I'm involved with, that we have a discussion afterward every day, every time we do it. And I was not hosting today, but at one point we were part of the conversation in which we said that, one of the people quoted John Kabat-Zinn, saying that compassion for others is something that can be cultivated. And so I brought that back, and I said the beautiful thing is that, we can develop this. It's not something that you just have what you have, whatever you're born with or programmed into in the first few years of your life, right? It's about it's about the the fact that you can actually practice it. No matter how old you are, no matter how further from it you've drifted in your life, you can practice this, and it's literally a matter of weeks before you start getting really good at it. And so my colleague Adam this morning, he after I said something along those lines, he said yeah, but it's really important also to be to not hold yourself, like kind of put your feet to the fire if you're not doing it right. Like if you're struggling with the practice and struggling with cultivating these skills, it's important to be forgiving and patient with yourself, or otherwise, you get back into that same noise, right? If we start blaming ourselves that oh, I'm just not good at this. This guy Art Burns said it will only be a few weeks, and here I am 2 months later, and I'm still struggling. It doesn't happen the same way for everybody. And this could, and if you are struggling with it, that could be a good reason to reach out to a coach. Just saying, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to help you here. Okay. And so, and as always, I'm going to put the link in the description that you can reach out to me for no charge, right? There's nothing I gain from this except the opportunity to help you, which is good enough for me, by the way. Right. But the point is, though, that all of this can be practiced. But even better than that, even more exciting than that, is the fact that the practice itself is effortless. And it really is, right? The practice is about non-doing. It's about just sitting here and letting go, right? Now, I'm not going to explain how that works right here because it's going to take too long, but it's a very simple process. Very simple process. And like 10 minutes a day, times 8 weeks, you're going to feel a huge difference. I promise you that. If you do the meditation correctly. So if you need any advice on that, if you need any help to figure that out, you just got to get in touch with me and I'll help you out with that, all right? But I'll just leave you with this sort of understanding of how it works is that it's not about, when we say a peaceful mind, right? It's not about quieting the thoughts. It's not about stopping the thoughts. It's not about turning something off, right? It's about allowing it all to happen, but just not paying attention to it. Right? Like when there's a drone of noise in the background, right? If you're at a barbecue and there's like a construction going on a block away or something like that, after a little while, you get to the point where, like, at first when the noise starts happening, like it's a jackhammer or something like that, it's like, oh my gosh, the noise is going to be a terrible barbecue. How am I going to, it's so distracting, so horrible that we have to hear that noise all day, right? But as you start talking to people and as you pay attention to the barbecue, you pay attention to what people are saying, you pay attention to the kids in the pool, you pay attention to the hot dogs and hamburgers and all that kind of stuff. Well, now all of a sudden, because you're paying attention to here, you don't really hear the sound anymore, right? Because you're not paying attention to it. Right? So it sort of fades out into the background. The jackhammer didn't get any further away or any quieter. It's still racking away the same way it did the first time you heard it, but your perception of it changes simply by virtue of the fact that you're not paying attention to it. So the same thing happens in our mind with our thoughts and emotions. Like if we just don't pay attention to them, just allow them to exist, well then pretty soon they sound quieter. They don't take up as much real estate in our mind anymore. And then we are free to see and use the power of our mind. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode today, everybody. Saturday, we're going to see how it goes. And tomorrow I got to do Sunday. Let's really see how that goes. Although I'm not terribly, I'm more familiar with working on Sundays than Saturdays. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And again, those links will be in the comments below. The link to book a call, if you would like to. I'm here for you. Okay, it won't cost you a thing. All right, everybody, have a great day and wish you well. Bye-bye.